Hey everyone, it's Jamie Laszlo again. It's been a minute since I've made a video. I know it's always been a little while since I made a video. I'm trying to get to making videos more often, but my goodness, I am such a procrastinator. What I did in my last video is I talked about my movie diary that I've been keeping track of since I was a teenager. And I went from 1978, I think, to 1989. And I talked about, the first thing that popped into my head when I saw, each concert listed in my movie diary, maybe a little story or something. So I thought we'd jump into the 90s, my 90s concerts. And it may not be as 90-ish as you think it is. I wish I could say I saw like Nirvana back in the day, but I didn't. Things like that. But going into 1990, the first show I saw, here it listed is the Grateful Dead and Crosby, Stills and Nash, and I've talked about this concert before on other channels, the Contrarians or Sea of Tranquility. I went because Crosby, Stills and Nash was opening the show. This is Three River Stadium, RIP Three River Stadium. I love that place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Crosby, Stills and Nash were great. I worked at a record store at the time, so we got pretty good tickets on the floor. We were maybe, I don't know, we're probably like 15 rows back from the stage. And CSN came on. It was daylight, but they still sounded great. And I enjoyed it. Now I'm going into my first Grateful Dead concert ever. And here comes dusk. So you know, the sun is setting, and here comes the Grateful Dead. And everybody has told me leading up to this show, oh, you don't like the Grateful Dead? Wait until you see them live. Oh, you got to see them live. So I'm experiencing this concert, and everybody around me is so into it. I think they're standing on their chairs more or less, and dancing like deadheads. And I am sitting on my chair like this the whole time, looking at the ground, just waiting for it to be over, thinking, is this the same song that they started a half hour ago? Is this a different song? I don't know. I don't care. Just get me out of here. And I'm stone cold sober, you know, which doesn't help matters, but still, you should be able to enjoy a concert somewhat. I don't care if it's the Grateful Dead or Phish or whatever. You should be able to enjoy it somewhat if you're sober. And I didn't. And it was probably my least favorite concert I've ever been to. Not the CSN part, but the Grateful Dead part. And you know what? I walked into a video rental place around 2003 or so, and they had that Pittsburgh 1990 show for rent. It was part of a box set of some sort. It was on DVD. So I thought, hey, I'm a little older, a little wiser. Let me rent it, and I'll see if my views have changed a little bit. I popped the DVD, and instantly I was like, yeah, I can see why I hated this. And it's on YouTube. If you go on YouTube and search for Grateful Dead 1990 Pittsburgh, it'll come up. So you guys give it a listen and tell me if I'm being foolish or not. But it's not something I enjoyed. And then we went into Don Henley. Oh, we still worked at the record store for Don Henley, and some band called the Rain Dogs opened. And this was a last minute show because this dude I worked with, we were stupid. We were stupid 20-year-olds. And this guy might have been even a little younger. Oh no, he's probably my age, maybe a little older. He said, hey, two friends of mine wanted me to get them Don Henley tickets because we worked at the record store. His friends thought he could get the better tickets. And he said, and someone just gave me free lawn tickets. Do you want to give the two people the lawn tickets? And I'll tell them that's all I could get them. And then we'll use their good tickets and sit up close. And I said, sure. So his friends drove us to the concert, and we give them the lawn tickets that he just got for free, and we use their good tickets that that they don't know existed, or we told them this is all we could get you, and someone gave us free good tickets. I don't know what the story was, but here's the thing. It rained cats and dogs that night. Don Henley was great, but it rained hard, and it rained on those two people. I didn't know those two people from anything. And during the show, they looked at their tickets. God, I didn't see the long tickets, but they said free on it, or something. It said something where they knew they were not tickets that were paid for. So when we met back at their car after the show, they were both livid. But it was a guy and his girlfriend. The girlfriend was so pissed. We were in the back seat, and she was yelling at the dude, I forget his name, that I worked with. And she was so pissed. She said, I have a gun in the glove compartment, and I'm not afraid to use it. I will fucking shoot you, you fucking asshole. And I just kept thinking, get me home. Just get me home. And I will be just so grateful just to get home. The dude controlled his girlfriend. He did tell the other guy, we're not friends with you anymore, but I'll get you home. And yeah, so that was my Don Henley experience. Just stupid. Just stupid. But I'm glad I didn't have to sit in the rain. Then we went to a free concert at the Point of Pittsburgh. You know, if you ever seen pictures of Pittsburgh, there's a point there that the three rivers make, and there's a fountain at the end. Well, around that area, I don't know if it's still there, but there used to be a stage, and they would have sometimes free concerts around the regatta. They always had the Pittsburgh Regatta with all the boats, and Bo Diddley played, and we walked down there for it. And we were in the front row, and I remember him just talking about not doing drugs, maybe longer than he actually played. There was a lot of don't do drugs speeches, and they lasted a long time. But when he played, it was fun. Then Earth Day. I remember this was Earth Day on Pitt campus in Pittsburgh. We went to go see Oingo Boingo play on this little lawn. And, I listened to Oingo Boingo. A friend of mine was a big, big fan, one of his favorite bands ever. And I went with him. And this was the Dark at the End of the Tunnel tour, which was an album I just recently bought and was getting into. And I was getting into the earlier stuff too. And this concert just opened my eyes, and I became a huge Oingo Boingo fan after that show. It was so great. And Danny Elfman up there he sang under this black umbrella the whole time. The umbrella was like stuck in a stand, and he was talking about how he hates the sun, in that dark Danny Elfman kind of way. And they just rocked. They fucking rocked. One of the best shows I've ever seen, and it was free on some little lawn. Then we went to, I've seen the Clarks. The Clarks is a Pittsburgh band. I've seen them probably 40 to 60 times. I put down like one or two of the times I've seen the Clarks, and I saw them at the Decade in Pittsburgh with a band called the Zippers. Since then, I've seen them so many times, 40, maybe 40-ish times. Saw Alice Cooper in 1990. That's where I got to meet him. We went backstage. We got backstage passes through the record store I worked at, and I still have the picture of me and him. It's right over there. You know what? I always tell people, if you're sitting next to Alice Cooper and you look like the scary one, there's an issue. So yeah, with my bad mullet and bad facial hair, my bad thick glasses, it's not a picture I'm really proud of. But it's cool that I'm next to Alice Cooper. And the front opened, and man, when the first front album came out, they only made one album. Then they changed their name to Baker's Pink and made a second album. But when that album came out, I was all about it. So I almost went to the show more for the front, and Alice Cooper was the bonus, and then meeting him was the bonus on top of the bonus. Mary Chapin Carpenter at Graffiti. Really big, Mary Chapin Carpenter was always classified as a country artist, but I heard someone say there's more Allman Brothers in her music than there is Patsy Cline, and that's a good way of putting it. Her first 4 or 5 albums are just jam-packed they're fun. Since then, she kind of took a lot of the fun out of her music and went more Joan Baez like. But those first 4 or 5 albums, man, are just fucking great. There's slower Joan Baez like songs within those albums, but there's a lot of upbeat, fun songs. I mean, her album Come On, Come On had like a ton of hits, like 5 hits on it, sold millions of copies. But I saw her at Graffiti, which is a really small place in Pittsburgh that's no longer there. And I remember I was under 21. It was a 21 or over show. I went with my mom, and I saw the front row open, and it was general admission. I said, let's not sit in the front row. I shouldn't even be here. And the seat I was gonna sit in, I was in the second row instead. She came down and sat on the guy's lap in that seat and sang to him. So I don't know if she would have done it to me if I was in that same seat, but then I moved to Columbus. First time I moved to Columbus for about a year, and I went to go see London Choir Boys for $2 at the Newport Music Hall, which I still go to. I'm going to see Queensryche there in a few weeks. London Choir Boys for $2, and it was fun. It was great. I love that first a bit of what you fancy album by London Choir Boys, or if otherwise known as just the Choir Boys, especially if you're in the UK. Then that same summer, while I was in Columbus, I went to go see 38 Special for free at the Ohio State Fair. And they were good. It was a solid show. 1991, I'm at Penn State now, and I went to go see Pat Metheny. And I'll tell you what, when that was over, man, I remember walking out going, that was a rock show. I don't care what anyone says. That was a rock show. He rocked the place. I can't remember the name of the building where we saw him. I still have the ticket, so it must be on the ticket. But yeah, he was great. I'd love to see him again. I had a chance to like a year or two ago and didn't go. I'm kind of kicking myself. And then we went to some other weird regatta that year, maybe like 45 minutes away, maybe an hour away from campus, for REO Speedwagon. It was a free concert, and that was the first time I saw REO Speedwagon. Hold on a second. Yeah, first time I saw REO Speedwagon, and they were really good. Little did I know that they would be. I would see them another 2 times maybe after that, and they always did the same show, song for song, and actually say the same things in between each song. But yeah, I've seen them a few times, and even though it's the same show, it's still really good. They still sound good. 1992, I went to Hall & Oates and Pat Benatar. That was her blues tour, and I left before Hall & Oates came on. I maybe should have stayed, but in 1992, I'm like, I don't need Hall & Oates. Went to go see Stephen Stills in America with my mom. And Stephen Stills was great. I remember he had some technical issues here and there, but still he was good. And America's first album was the first album I ever listened to as a kid in popular music. I used to listen to that album over and over. I still have my original copy. It's not very playable. Then I went with my dad and his wife to go see Clint Black and Mary Chapin Carpenter. It was a nice night out with my dad, and his wife. And there are, what, those first two Clint Black albums are really damn good. If you like country music, if you can handle country music, those first 2 Clint Black albums are really good. And Mary Chapin was good. In 1993, I was dumb. Man, I was dumb up until about 30, I think. But in 1993, I'm like, oh, how old am I? Like, it depends on what month. I'm 22, turning 23 in October. We moved to Florida, Fort Lauderdale, without a cent to our name. Big plans, but no actual big plans in the head, but no actual plans on paper to execute those plans. So we went to go see Sabotage and a local band at the time called X15 at Rosebuds in Fort Lauderdale. That was a rock club. And my buddy was banging a waitress, and she was able to get us in. I think you had to like buy drinks at least, and we were so broke we couldn't afford drinks. So she was like letting that slide. She said, I'll take care of you all night. Don't worry about it. No one's going to yell at you if you're not buying drink after drink or something like that. But Sabotage was really loud, too loud for that small bar though. And I saw REO Speedwagon again. Every time I saw REO, it was either for free or by accident. Like they happened to be playing a show, part of a bill, and I was going for a different reason, or it was just free, last minute type thing. I think someone gave me tickets that day for that, and I was living in Pittsburgh at the time, I think, for that show, and I just walked down to the show, saw it, and walked home. And in 1994, Pink Floyd at Three Rivers Stadium. I remember going to work that morning, and that tour for Division Bell, they had a big blimp following them around city to city. So the blimp would fly over the city during the day before the concert. I remember going to work because I lived on Mount Washington in Pittsburgh, and I would take the incline down to work. And I had to walk to the incline, and I saw the blimp go over my house maybe about 9 a.m. I was like, see you tonight. Oh my God. And we had like some of the best weed ever that night. And my buddy was like giving it away to strangers. I'm like, no, don't give that weed away to strangers. That's too good. Then I went to go see Rush and Candlebox. I missed Candlebox. I think I was out in the parking lot drinking, and I was at the Civic Arena, and that was really good. What was that? Counterparts. Yeah. Metallica, Fight, Suicidal Tendencies. I missed Fight and Suicidal. I back in the day, you're like, I don't want to leave the parking lot. I'm having too much fun. So, and they were really good. I went to go see Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, and Jim Rose Circus at the Civic Arena. So that's very 90s. Nine Inch Nails was great. They had a screen in front of them on the stage, so they're playing behind the screen, and images would be thrown onto the screen. I remember being in the mosh pit or the whatever you want to call it for Nine Inch Nails. My glasses went flying, and it was like throwing them into an ocean. They were gone forever. And Marilyn Manson, nobody knew who this guy was or who the group was, and he comes out doing the craziest shit that we've ever seen. He came out and ripped his pants off to expose this fake long dick that went down to the ground, and it was a G-string in the back, and it's a big rubber thing hanging there, and he yells into the microphone, how many 14-year-old girls are in the audience? How many of you 14-year-old girls want to suck my dick? We're sitting there going, who is this? What the fuck? Who is this guy? And he became popular months later. And the Jim Rose Circus was a circus where, I don't know how they did this night after night, but they would throw darts into each other's backs, and the guy was eating light bulbs, and the dude had his tongue pierced, and he would put a hook in there and then lift up a cinder block and swing it with his tongue going. Crazy. That was a crazy tour. And I saw Crosby, Stills and Nash. I believe this was a acoustic show with Michael Hedges. And Michael Hedges, I didn't know Michael Hedges from anything. And David Crosby came out before the opening act of Michael Hedges and introduced him and said, pay attention to this guy. And the best way to put it is, it was Michael Hedges and one guitar, and that's it. But if you shut your eyes, you'd think there were 7 guys up there playing guitar. It was pretty amazing. Yeah, he left us way too early. I forget how he died too. He died, I think, in the 90s too. Late 90s? I think so. Then I saw the band. Maybe 20 years too late at the Metropole, not a venue. Metropole was like a club, a dance club, not the kind of place you want to see. I couldn't see shit. You could barely hear it. And it's 1994, the band. So, yeah, it wasn't great. I wish it was. I wish I could say it was great, but it wasn't that great. And I saw Mary Chip Carpenter again with the Mavericks. Mavericks were great. I borrowed some chick's car for that, to drive 45 minutes into downtown for that show. Her boyfriend was not happy that I was doing that, but she let me borrow the car. I didn't have a car then. Lollapalooza '94 with the Smashing Pumpkins and Beastie Boys and George Clinton and the Breeders and Nick Cave. The thing about that is I remember the Beastie Boys coming on second to last, and they got the crowd going. We were all having a great time. And then after that, the Pumpkins came on, and they were doing like this 15 minutes of feedback and downtime, and they still kind of do that to this day. At least the last time I saw them, maybe 6 years ago. And we're like, we've been here all day, can you lively up your music a little bit? But when they were good, there's just way too much downtime. Then I saw CSN again with a demented Fleetwood Mac, that 1994 Fleetwood Mac combination that they had. Yeah, what I remember about that Fleetwood Mac show is Mick Fleetwood came out and he had a suit on where you could play percussion by hitting different things on your suit, and he did like a drum solo in a bodysuit, hitting different areas of his body. That was kind of cool. But you know what, I tell people when people ever ask me, they say, "You ever seen Fleetwood Mac?" Even though I saw the 1994 version of Fleetwood Mac, I usually say no. I didn't. But Pat Benatar was there, and that's why I went. And REO Speedwagon was the headliner, so there I am going for Pat Benatar, and REO happens to be there again, saying the same shit between songs. 96, I saw my first Phish concert at the Civic Arena, which was so much fun. My buddy worked for this company, and they gave us, the club seats, the little suite up there where, box seats where you have your own little fridge and your own bathrooms. And he's like, don't open the fridge. We're just allowed to sit here and enjoy the show. Well, we're smoking a lot of pot. Oh God, there was so much smoke in the Civic Arena. You could not see the other side of the arena. You could not see the seats on the other side because of all the smoke in the place. And we got so hammered that there was a lock on the beer fridge that we weren't supposed to touch. And I saw two guys prying it open with something. Popped it open, was drinking all the beers that we're not allowed to drink. The one guy's down the little hallway in our private bathroom, puking all over the seats. But it was a great show. First time I remember them on the trampolines doing they're jamming, Trey and the other dude jumping up and down. Yeah, I've seen Phish a few times and they always rock. Then I went to Lollapalooza '96, Metallica, Soundgarden, Method Man, Ramones, Corner Shop. And I was at the Charlestown Raceway in Charlestown, West Virginia. So now I'm living in Virginia, Sterling, Virginia. And we made the drive. And this show, Corner Shop, they had a mild hit on MTV called Brimful of Asha. Everybody Needs a Bosom for a Pillow. And I smoked pot with them on the side of the third stage that they were playing after their show. And for Soundgarden, I wanted to get up close. So during Method Man, I got up close because Soundgarden was coming up next. And I got to tell you, Method Man was, for rap, that was some heavy shit. Pretty close to metal. So I'm sure that he upped his hardness for that tour to blend in a little bit better. But I didn't hate it. And Soundgarden was great. And that was up close. Metallica was Metallica. They were really good. Metallica in the 90s, man, when I saw them, they're always so loud, but so clear at the same time. In 97, we went to Frederick, Maryland from Virginia, Sterling, Virginia, to see Dio and My Dying Bride in this very, very small bar. And it was almost kind of depressing how small the place was. But I mean, he was really good. And I was really close. I was right up there, front row, and I was banging my head and drinking beers. And I remember when I got home that night, my hair was like this from the sweat and the head banging. And every time I woke up in the morning after that, and they were like, "You got Dio hair." So Yeah, that show gave me Dio hair. I saw CSN again at Wolf Trap in Fairfax, Virginia, and that was good. We drove to go see Matthew Sweet at the 930 Club. That was good. And this is very 90s. We're getting very 90s now. The Verb Pipe and Tonic, both bands had their share of a couple good songs, and we were just going to have a good time. Mighty Joe Plum, which was like barely a one-hit wonder in the 90s at the 930 Club. That was a free show, I think. Then my only time I saw Styx at the Nissan Pavilion in Bristow, Virginia. They still had Dennis DeYoung. Dennis DeYoung was there, and they put on a great show with the laser beams and everything. Welcome to Paradise, or Return to Paradise tour, I think, and Pat Benatar opened. So that's why I was really there. But Styx was great. And I saw Rolling Stones and Sheryl Crow. Got tickets the day of the show, so I got kind of close, but on the side of the stage. So the catwalk came right in front of me. So when Mick Jagger came out to the catwalk, I was like face to face with him. And Sheryl Crow opened, and I could not believe how good she was. I wasn't expecting much, but she was really good. One of the biggest surprises I ever saw. Then John and Mary of 10,000 Maniacs. Yeah, I don't know. It was two people trying to cash in on the name 10,000 Maniacs at some little bar in Bridgewater, PA called Thursdays. It wasn't that great. 1998, I went to the Tibetan Freedom concert, day 2. Day 1 is kind of famous, notorious, because there was a storm and some people died from a lightning crash. Did they get struck by lightning, or did the lightning hit something that caused their death? I can't remember, but they had to shut down the show. And then the next day, a lot of those bands got crammed into day 2. So, but here's the thing, we went, and it was so hot in that stadium. This is RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. It was so hot. It had to be over 100 degrees. Water, we're poor people working in restaurants at the time, and water was like $7, and there was no beer being sold, no beer whatsoever. And I guess because of the Tibetan thing, and we had pot, so we would smoke pot up high. We would get high up high in the stadium, and then we just wanted something to drink, and the water was going down so fast that you would spend $1 million on water, but we wanted beer, and there was no beer. So it was, and then REM came out, and they did the slowest REM songs you can imagine. I'm like, why is REM putting me into REM? So what I was doing is they had buckets of ice out, big things of ice out on the floor. And, everyone's putting their hands in there, and you don't want to suck on ice because everyone's hand is in there. But I thought, if I get a big chunk of ice, let it melt a little bit, right? Because everyone's touching the outside of the ice, let it melt, and no one's touching the inside of the ice. So once that's exposed, suck on that. So that's what I was doing. So it was tough to get through that day. It was just too hot. Blues Traveler was all right. Radiohead was all right. The Wallflowers, Pearl Jam was good. Chili Peppers, we were starting to leave when the Chili Peppers came on, because we were just too worn out. So yeah, it was way too much work for what we got. And I saw Pat Benatar again at IC Light Amphitheater in Pittsburgh, PA, and then Monster Magnet. Oh my God, Monster Magnet, with Kid Rock opening, and Head P, HED, in parentheses, PE, at the Graffiti, which is no longer around. Same place I saw that first Mary Chapin Carpenter show. But I went because, so a friend of mine told me, my buddy will drive you to the concert. He'll go with you. He just got a DUI, so he can't drink and drive. He'll be sober the whole show. He'll drive you there. You can drink what you want. He'll drive you back. I said, okay, that's a deal. So we get there, and I kind of lose track of the guy who drove me. And I saw Kid Rock at the bar, and I didn't pay attention. I probably wouldn't pay attention today either. But so I get up close to see Monster Magnet, and they were great. And this is a pretty small place. Unknowingly, while I'm at the front row, the dude who drove me, who just got a DUI, who should not be drinking, is drinking his ass off. So when I meet up with him after the show, the dude cannot stand. And I am 45 minutes away from home. Again, working in a restaurant, I don't have a lot of money. And this guy's stumbling over himself. I'm in line to use the bathroom, and he stumbles in front of the line because he's not even aware of where he is, stumbles into the bathroom. And I go to the guys around me in line and said, yeah, that's my ride home. And they all laughed at me because they think I'm making a joke. I'm like, no, that guy's supposed to drive me home. And they're like, oh, dude. So when I get out of the bathroom, I can't find the dude. He's gone. I go running to the car. The car is still there. I come back to the venue. He's not in the venue, and it's pretty much empty. I end up backstage with Monster Magnet. I'm talking to the lead singer, Dave Windorf. His last name's Windorf, right? And I'm asking him, hey, dude, any beer back here? He's like, no, man. I'm like, have you seen a really drunk guy stumbling around? No, man. Will you sign my ticket? Sure, man. And I was out the door. And then I'm out the door going, what do I do? Do I run back to the car? And then this really attractive girl is there, and she's hitting on me, but she's probably a hooker. She's like, why don't we just get a room? If you're stuck downtown, we can get a room together. I'm like, boy, you're hot, but what? So I go running back to the car. The car is gone. Now the car is gone, and I'm thinking maybe I should have got the room with the hot chick. So now what do I do? I'm so far away from home that a cab is going to cost me an arm and a leg, but I had no other choice. So I called a cab, and I spent all the money to get back home 45 minutes. And here I found out the next day, the dude who just got a DUI went down a one-way street the wrong way and got a second DUI. So it's a good thing that I wasn't with him, or I probably would have been driving home. I'm sure I would have been driving home, and I was, and I had a lot of beer in me. So it could have ended up worse, than just, $100 out on a cab ride or whatever it cost. So yeah, that was a hell of a night. You can tell the stories a lot different now, now that I'm in my 20s, and the part one of this video where I was in my teens. So 1999, I saw the Allman Brothers at Starlight Amphitheater. That was really good. I went with a guy who ate too many mushrooms, and he had to go back to the car and just lie on the hood. He said, oh, but I heard the music and it sounded really good. But they were great. That was my first time seeing the Allmans. Rolling Stones, I saw at the Mellon Arena. So they were doing like a arena tour instead of a stadium tour. And they were with the Corrs, and that was really good. But, I missed that big spectacle that the Stones would put on with the stage was smaller because it was an arena. Mo, which is like a poor man's Phish, saw back at Graffiti. I think that's the last show I've ever saw at Graffiti. Mo, and they were so late coming on. They're supposed to start at 8, and I think it's going after 9 o'clock, and they're still not on. And a lot of people were like shouting, one more hour and maybe they'll come on. And I saw Pat Benatar at the Newport here in Columbus. So now I'm moving to Columbus. And then I went back to Pittsburgh to see her again with Donnie Iris at the Point State Park, where I saw Bo Diddley. And then I saw Mike Ness at Graffiti. Actually, I was still living in Pittsburgh, so I probably came to Columbus to see Pat Benatar at the Newport. Then went back home to see her with Donnie Iris. And then my last show at Pittsburgh while living in Pittsburgh before I moved to Columbus was Mike Ness solo. And I tell you what, I've seen Social D a few times, and that show was probably better than any Social Distortion show ever. In fact, when we were leaving, I remember the guy in front of me saying, well, I just saw him in Philly the other night and it wasn't that good. So everything must have been running on all cylinders that night for Mike Ness. So there you go. Long-winded, but that's my 90s concerts. So as we go into 2000s, hopefully I'll get that video out sooner rather than later. And I'll talk about some of my 2000 shows. So I don't know what you guys were doing in the 90s, what bands you were seeing, but that's what I was doing stupid things, making bad mistakes most of the time. So if there's any shows that you were seeing in the 90s that you want to discuss or talk about, put them in the comments below, or elaborate on anything that I said or any of these shows maybe you've seen too. So until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later.